James D'Arcy played a very important character in Iron Man, Agent Carter, and Avengers Endgame. However, after his character died, no one's been expecting to see him, but recently he just hinted that he might be coming back to the MCU. In this video, we're gonna go over what James D'Arcy said during his interview and how his character could possibly make a return. So who did James D'Arcy play in Avengers Endgame? James D'Arcy played Edwin Jarvis, Howard Stark's trusty butler. He wasn't just a butler for Howard, but an ally he could depend on whether he needed help. When Johann Fenhof tried to convince the SSR that Howard was guilty of treason, he managed to find all the evidence he needed to clear his master's name. The whole situation was super risky, but Jarvis loved the rush of adrenaline he got from the whole thing. Because of this, he wanted more adventure in his life, rather than just being Howard Stark's butler. So he volunteered to help out Agent Carter against Whitney Frost. Frost was a scientist who experimented on herself with zero matter through her husband, Calvin Chadwick's influence. During one of her experiments, there was an accident that caused Frost to get infected with zero matter. This gave her the ability to literally absorb others into her own skin. Since she was extremely intelligent too, she managed to figure out how to control her powers and even help Carter with many of her missions. However, zero matter slowly but surely clouded her judgment and made her evil. Jarvis helped Carter defeat Frost, but his own wife almost died after Frost tried to absorb her. After this traumatic experience, he started re-evaluating his entire future. Over the next few years, Jarvis was like a parental figure to Tony Stark. Whenever Howard had one of his outbursts, Jarvis would always comfort Tony. After Howard died, he took care of Tony until he died himself. Now, what happened to Jarvis? After Edwin Jarvis died, Tony paid tribute to him by naming his AI system Jarvis after him. As time went by, Tony upgraded this AI into an artistically intelligent system. He even tasked Jarvis with running the business for Stark Industries and even managing the security of Tony's mansion and Stark Tower. Tony also uploaded Jarvis into all of the Iron Man armors so he could communicate with him and the other Avengers easily. The AI also helped Bruce Banner in using Loki's scepter in order to finish creating the peacemaking program code called Ultron Program. However, that's exactly what led to his own death. When Tony and Bruce left Jarvis to do all the work himself, Ultron awakened. Before Jarvis could contact the others, he was violently attacked and completely destroyed. But during the attack, Jarvis was smart enough to dump his memory and his remaining codes all around the internet. Later, Tony Stark uploads Jarvis's protocols and duties into Ultron's vibranium body, which made Vision. Next, will he ever return to the MCU? James D'Arcy recently had an interview with Digital Spy to talk about his cameo in Avengers Endgame. During his interview, James revealed a lot of information and even teased a possible return. At first, James said he loved working at the MCU and even complimented the Endgame directors Anthony and Joe Russo. He talked about how nice they were to him and invited him back as a cameo in Endgame. After all this, he said, and you know, as I've said before, the Marvel Universe is a funny old place. Nobody is ever dead, and now they're into the metaverse. Many fans think James hinted at a possible return here. If no one in the Marvel Cinematic Universe dies, then shouldn't it be easy for James to come back as Edwin Jarvis? On top of that, he kept mentioning that he loved playing Jarvis. So if there ever is a return for our favorite butler, then James would probably accept the role without hesitation. James mentioned that before playing Jarvis, he was used to playing psychopaths or period dramas. So this was super new for him. He said shooting for it was even better, and that he finally had the opportunity to have fun and work at the same time. He said, so to have this opportunity to have fun? Oh god, I can't tell you. When we were shooting the show, I just felt lighter in my life. So how will he come back? If James D'Arcy does end up coming back, there are actually many different ways he could come back. Here is just a few. In Armor Wars. If James D'Arcy ever wants to come back, he could most likely come back in Armor Wars. This show is going to be about James Rhodes trying to stop Stark Tech from falling into the wrong hands. Since the show will continue Tony Stark's legacy, it might show us Tony Stark's childhood more, or show us some flashbacks. If we see more of Tony's childhood, we'll probably also see Edwin Jarvis, since he was the one that raised him after his father passed away. Next, as a cameo. James D'Arcy has already appeared in Avengers Endgame as a cameo, and he had a lot of great things to say about his whole experience too. So he'd probably agree if he got the chance to play this role again. If at any point someone from the MCU tries to go back in time to a time when he was alive, then they could possibly run into him. Or if one of the characters tries to look for Howard Stark, then they'll most definitely come across Edwin Jarvis as well, since they were almost always together. Considering just how many times the characters have gone to alternative universes, it wouldn't be too surprising if it happened again during future movies or TV shows. Next, as a director. Everyone knows that James D'Arcy would love to play Edwin Jarvis if he ever got the chance again, but no one really considers that he could also come back as the director. Recently, James was talking to Fandom Wire to promote Made in Italy, a movie that he directed. When he was asked if he'd like to direct a Marvel movie if he had the chance, then he replied, I mean, I'm not gonna say no to that. James has already shown that he's capable of directing, although it's unclear if he can handle the CGI aspect of everything since he hasn't worked on a movie with heavy CGI before. Even though he won't be coming back as Jarvis, it would still be cool to watch a Marvel movie that he directed. He also mentioned that he doesn't want to be stuck in just one genre. He wants to experiment in the future and tell stories that he can connect with other people, but he said he probably won't be doing any horror movies in the future since he doesn't really like them. But his return makes sense. Many people think that his return isn't possible since he's dead. On top of that, there isn't really huge demand for him to come back either, but his return would actually make a lot of sense because Marvel has brought many other characters that everyone thought were gone for good. Daredevil and Spider-Man No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home was probably one of the biggest movies of all time, since it brought back a few characters we never thought we'd see again, like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Mans. But there's another character that was brought back that didn't receive as much hype, Daredevil. No one was expecting to see him when they went to watch Spider-Man No Way Home. Fans have always wanted Daredevil and Spider-Man to come together, even before the movies even existed. And now, after so long, the two are finally in a movie together. They were always friends in the comics, so we were basically waiting for this moment. This only means that they'll probably be starring together in the future as well. If Marvel was able to bring Daredevil back, then it wouldn't be too surprising if they also brought other characters like Edwin Jarvis too. Other than Daredevil, Wilson Fisk was also another character that was brought into Hawkeye. Kingpin is the show's main antagonist and is easily stronger on the show than he was in Daredevil. Even Clint's trick arrows aren't powerful enough to take down Kingpin. Weirdly enough, this is actually more true to the comics, since he was supposed to have some insane physical strength. Many think that this Kingpin would have no problem taking down Daredevil because of his strength. In the Daredevil series, he would get injured very often, so this was a huge change. Since both Wilson Fisk and Daredevil both ended up at the MCU, it shouldn't be too much of a stretch to assume that James D'Arcy should be back as Edwin Jarvis soon. That's a wrap for today's video. Do you think James D'Arcy will ever return as Edwin Jarvis in the future? Make sure to let us know in the comments down below. As always, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and click the subscribe button for more videos like this one. We'll see you next time.